All right, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Student Eligibility Manual Applications webinar. My name is Megan, and I will be your moderator this morning. Once we start the actual presentation, Shoshana will be your presenter, and she will walk you through the Primero Edge applications process. Now, on to some webinar housekeeping. These next few slides are going to give you a few guidelines on using GoToWebinar from an attendee's point of view. On the left-hand side of the screen, you'll see the GoToWebinar viewer, and there you'll see the actual presentation itself. On the right-hand side of the screen is the GoToWebinar control panel, and there you can ask your questions and select your audio mode. You can open and close that control panel with the red arrow on the left of your dashboard. You can choose your audio preferences of either telephone or microphone and speakers. If you choose telephone, use the dial-in information from your GoToWebinar dashboard. Everyone's going to be muted during this call to avoid any feedback or any background noise, but feel free to ask any questions in that questions pane. You can type your questions anytime throughout the presentation. I will be answering the questions during the presentation, and we'll be addressing any questions at the end of the webinar. So without any further ado, I'm going to turn this webinar back over to Shoshana, and she will walk you through the features and functionalities of Primero Edge applications processing.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much, Megan, for that warm introduction. As Megan stated, my name is Shoshana Lede, and I will be your presenter for today. And I want to welcome each and every one of you to our manual applications training. Today, we will be discussing applications. How do we manually enter an application into Primero Edge for those families who may not have access to School Cafe and online apps? We will also look at how to notify those parents of the status or the what their application resulted as. And then finally, we will look at the Smart Bin and then Master Index. The Smart Bin is where any pending students or pending applications, as well as any deleted applications will be. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started here. I do want to let all of you know that if you have any questions throughout the presentation, please ask your questions again within the questions panel, and Megan will be fielding those questions as we go through the presentation. We will leave a little bit of time at the end of the presentation for you to ask your questions aloud. So if you feel comfortable with raising your hand, and I can unmute your line at that time, so that way you can speak over the phone and ask your question. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and bring up my screen so we can get started here within manual applications. While I am getting my screen up for everyone, if there are any audio issues or if you're not able to hear me or if you're not able to see my screen properly, please also you can send those questions or comments within the questions panel as well. Okay. All right, so right now I am currently logged into one of our training environments here within Primero Edge. We're going to dive right in this afternoon. So we're going to look at the student eligibility module. This module has different subsections or sections available under student eligibility. These subsections are dependent on permissions granted to users. So some users may be able to see all of these sections and some may not. So that is again dependent on the role granted to your user and what permissions are granted to that role. Since we're going to be working with those manual applications, I'm going to go ahead and choose Applications. I'll expand this section. Once I expand the section, notice we have several subsections. We have Scan, Manual Entry, Validate, Notify, Smart Bin, and then finally Master Index. Our training today, we will first start off within Manual Entry. Once you click on Manual Entry, you will be presented with the following screen. On this screen, you won't have any information under application number, eligibility, basis, application status, user, and date. We first need to actually add the application. In order to add a new application, we're going to go ahead and choose Add New Application here to the top corner of our screen. So in the top right-hand corner, I have Add New Application. Once I select Add New Application, I have a separate pop-up box. This is the actual manual entry of the application. So this is the screen to where we are going to enter the information that the parent has filled out on those paper apps. This screen is divided amongst 3 sections. The very first section that we see on the list is the student section. Within the student section, these are where the students that are attending your district will be applied. Okay. The second section that we see is household members. The household member section is going to contain the students as well as parents, guardians, siblings that are not old enough to attend school, aunties, uncles, grannies, whoever lives in the household. So this section will contain all of those members. And then the final section will be the applicant SSN and the signature of the applicant, and it's also the validate section. So within this section, this is where we will get the result of the application once complete. All right, so we're going to go ahead and detail out each section. So we're going to fill out an application for a student. We're going to start within the first section. Notice that I have the ID column. Under this ID column, if the parent has indicated on an application the student ID number, so you readily have the student ID, you can quickly just enter the student ID within this area. Okay. Once you enter the student ID, if it is a valid ID, you can hit enter or tab, and your student will populate with their name, his or her date of birth, the site code that they're assigned to. Notice that there is also an area for you to extend a direct approval. A direct approval from an application is one of the 5 listed categories. So if the parent has indicated on an application that their student is foster, Head Start, homeless, migrant, or runaway, you have the ability to choose one of these categories. Please be advised that once you choose the category and then upon saving the application, you will be asked to either confirm the status or not confirm the status. That means if the student has been marked as homeless and you have proof that the student is homeless, maybe from a homeless liaison, some type of letter, you can mark this status as approved or confirmed, and then you can extend the eligibility. If the parent has marked that a student is homeless, however, it has not been confirmed, meaning you have no proof that this student is actually homeless, you can mark the application as not confirmed and that you want to give the eligibility of the application. The eligibility of the application will be based off of whatever income was entered for the student or the parent. Okay. So this particular student here this afternoon, what we're going to do, I'm going to remove this student because I've determined that this is not the student that I want on this application. This is the wrong student. So I can do that by choosing the trash can to the far right. Okay, this trash can is for delete. So notice I have selected the trash can and that student has been removed. I now need to look up the student that I want to add. So I want to look up the correct student because that ID number was not correct. In order to look up a student, I can choose this box, which is called a 3-dot lookup box. I call it that because it has 3 dots in it, but it is just a lookup box. If you hover over it, it will show lookup. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this box. Once I click on the box, I am brought to a search screen. Under this search screen, I can search for my student by last name, by first name, his or her ID number, their date of birth, and their status, whether or not that be active or inactive. Notice we can also search by site as well. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and leave all sections as blank, and I'm going to just hit search. Notice that once I hit search, all students within my list will, all students within my district, will come up within the list. I will go ahead and find the student that I actually want to add. So the student that is on this application is Yasmin. I can choose Yasmin's name, and then her name has populated. So this is my correct student. If there is a sibling student within the household that you also need to add, we can do the same. So I can do lookup. I can type in a partial last name. And once we have located our student, so we want to add Mina. I can double click on Mina's name, and now she's inserted into this application. Okay. Notice that every time I add a student, there will be a separate box that pops up giving me the ability to add more students. There's a third student in this household. However, this third student is not yet registered in my district. I can add a pending student to this application. To add a pending student, notice there is an icon with a plus mark in it. It looks like a little person with a plus mark. If I hover over this icon, notice it says add new pending student. So on this paper application, mom or dad has entered both Yasmin and Mina, but they've also entered a student by the name of Danny. Okay, Danny is not yet in your district, so you were not able to find Danny under the lookup. I'm going to add Danny to this application as a pending student. He does not have an ID number at this point. He does have his first name, which we know that is going to be Danny. His last name, if I can spell. The site code to which he would be assigned. So the parent has indicated that Danny is going to be at Chisholm Trail Intermediate School. Danny will be in the 6th grade. He is not a direct approval. And his date of birth is 7/11/2004. Okay, so this is all of the information that the parent has indicated on the application. Okay, so I can enter this temporary student or this pending student. Okay. All right, so once we have all of that information entered, all I need to do is choose OK. Once I select OK, notice Danny's name has populated with his date of birth, and there is now an icon next to his name with a green check mark in it. This means that this is a pending student. He is not yet in my district. Okay. So we've added all of the students that are on the paper application. We can move on to the second step of this app. But before we go into household members, notice that we do provide a space for you to indicate a SNAP or a TANF case number. So if a parent has indicated a case number on the application, you can also extend a DC approval with a valid case number. So in this area, you would put in the SNAP number and then choose SNAP. If they indicated a TANF number, you would enter that TANF number within this area. Okay. Within the second section of the application, remember these are our household members. Notice all 3 of the students that we entered within the first section have populated in the second section. Okay, so they're automatically going to be inserted within the household members. At this point, there was no income indicated, but we do have the ability to add income for any of these students. Okay. If the parent has marked on the application that Yasmin does receive income, maybe she babysits on the weekend, I can choose the pencil, which is an edit button. I can put in earnings from work. Well, let me uncheck no income. She makes $25 every week from babysitting. So I'll add her income as well as her frequency. Once I have that important information entered, I'll go ahead and choose OK in order to add her income. Mina nor Danny work or receive income, so we can leave them as no income. Okay, so it's no income indicated. At this point, we can add additional members to this household. In order to add those additional members, I can choose Add Member. That's located here to the very top right-hand corner of the screen. So I'm going to choose Add Member. Once I choose Add Member, my member name defaults to Member 4. Remember, our first 3 members are the students. This member would be Member 4. We don't have to keep member 4 as the name. Of course, I can delete out member 4 and enter the parent's name. Okay, so I have my parent's name entered. Now I will enter the income as well as the frequency, if any. If Mr. Gibbs does not receive income, we can mark no income. So if there was no income indicated, we'll mark no income for Mr. Gibbs. And then I'll choose OK. If there is an additional member in the household, we'll go ahead and choose Add Member and then enter that member's name. Notice that member 5 has populated. This is the 5th entry within household members. Okay, so we're going to, it's going to be Mom. It's a long name, H-A-S-A-N. Okay, so Vivian is the mom within the household. She receives income from public assistance and alimony. She receives $1,200 a month from this income type. So we'll go ahead and enter $1,200 monthly and then choose OK. Okay, so now we have a total of 5 household members. Yasmin receives $25 a week and Vivian receives $1,200 a month. Notice the frequency of the income. The $25 weekly and the $1,200 monthly. The total income will automatically update to a yearly income because the frequencies vary. If, for example, both of these household members received a monthly income, the total income would be monthly opposed to yearly. Okay, so if the income frequency differs, you will always see yearly as an automatic calculation. Okay. If you find that you need to make adjustments to any information, remember the pencil is always here for you to make those modifications. Before we move on to household size, entering this information, let's explore optional information and then guardian information. Under the tab for optional information, this is where we can indicate ethnicity, race, and then choose if other benefits were checked off. So if the parent chose to share their information from this free and reduced meal application with other programs, there will be a box within this area for you to check that off that the parent does want to share that information. If the parent indicated race and ethnicity on the manual application, you can also choose the race and the ethnicity of the household. Once the optional information is selected, go ahead and choose OK. Remember, optional information is not required. However, we do provide you that space to enter that. Under the guardian information section, guardian information, if you have a separate guardian for the household, perhaps a grandmother or grandfather may have temporary guardianship over the children and they're the ones filling out this application. You do have the opportunity to enter a guardian name and then you can use the address on the application being that of grandmother's or grandfather's address, meaning that you can send notification letters out to them. This will not be changing the address on file for the students, only giving you the opportunity to use the address on the application. Okay. For these students, there is no guardian that has been indicated other than the mother and the father, so there's no temporary guardianship. So I'm going to go ahead and just close down this screen. Okay. Now at this point, we can move on to the household size section. The household size section, Premier Wedge will ask you to go back and count how many members have been entered within Section 2. Notice that we have 5 members entered here. Okay. If for some reason I make a mistake and I enter 4 members, notice that Premier Wedge will tell me that my household size is invalid. I have 5 entries within this section. That means 4 is not valid. I will need to enter 5. Okay. So there is a difference between our manual applications and our online applications. In that aspect, manual applications, you will need to enter the household size, how many entries were in Section 2. Okay. All right, so now that we have our household size in, our income is in according to the income amount per family member. Now we can proceed on to step 3. Did the parent or the guardian indicate the last four of their Social Security number on the application? If no, you would mark no SSN. If the parent did indicate their SSN on the application, simply enter the last four of their Social Security number within the provided box. Once you enter the last four of the Social Security number, notice those two red caution or error symbols have disappeared. Now I need to tell Premier Wedge whether or not the parent signed the application. Is there a signature? If there is a signature, we can mark off signature. Notice that once I marked off signature and SSN has been satisfied, this is considered a valid application. And we have the eligibility results based off the income of a household of 5. So based off 5 members in the household, a total yearly income of $15,700, this family qualifies for free price meals based on income. The valid period is from today's date. That is the day that I'm processing this application until the end of the school year. If for any reason the parent did not mark a signature on the application, we're going to go ahead and uncheck signature. At this point, this application is considered incomplete because the application is not signed. That means I need to contact the family and I need to have them to either one, come back in and sign this application, or they will need to submit a new application that includes a signature. So what I want to do is I want to contact the family and see if they can come back in and sign the application. So I've called Mr. Gibbs and I have requested that he comes in. So I want to add this application as pending. So it's pending Mr. Gibbs coming in to sign it. I can add this application to pending. So I'm going to go ahead and click pending here at the bottom. Okay. Once I choose pending, I get another pop-up with reasons why I'm adding this application to pending. There are several reasons to choose from. We are going to choose the one that best suits our needs, and in this case it is no signature. There is no signature provided on this application, so we can mark no signature. We will be required to enter a comment in order to save this information. So notice that the OK button is grayed out. It will not become lit or available to me until I enter a comment. So in this case, I will enter a comment that so I'm entering a comment that I've called the parent and asked for him or her to come in and sign the application. At this point, now I can choose OK. OK is going to add this application to the pending status. Okay. All right. So now that I've chosen OK, the application has left my screen, and notice now it tells me my application number. I'll have an eligibility if it was validated, but right now this is just a partially validated application. It's still pending. So that results in no eligibility, no basis at this time. The application status is partially validated. Okay. It will, the system will tell you what user partially validated this application. In this case it says Cybersoft support because myself, I'm logged in, I'm the one that hit pending application. And then you'll have a date that the application was partially validated. Okay. I can go directly into adding a new application at this point just by choosing Add New Application. But what we want to do, we want to visit the Smart Bin. The Smart Bin is where your applications that you have added to pending, or any pending or deleted applications, where they will be sent to. So the next day has rolled around. Mr. Gibbs has come into your office. He's in front of you. He's signed the application. Where do you go in order to tell the system that he has signed the application and for you to process it? What you do is come here to Smart Bin, because again, the Smart Bin is where those applications are stored. So I'm going to click on Smart Bin. Now that I've chosen SmartBin, notice at the top of the page, the top left-hand corner, we have 3 different bullets. I have pending students, I have pending applications, and then followed by deleted applications. Within this area, it will always default to pending students once you first enter into it. Under the pending students, if I have pending students, their information will be listed below. Remember, Danny was that pending student that we added to the application, so he shows up here with his grade, his date of birth. It tells me what application he is pending on, which is 3507, and that the application status at this point is partially validated. Okay. We're going to come back in at a later time and actually look at how to process Danny on this application. But what we want to do now, we want to look at our pending applications, because remember, Mr. Gibbs, he's in front of us, he signed the application, he's ready for it to be processed. So I have clicked on pending applications. Notice application 3507 sits here under pending apps. It tells me the reason that it was added to pending application. It was no signature. I get the date and a timestamp of when it was added, the user who added it, again being myself, and any comments that were added at the time it was sent as pending. So if I hover over this comment, it will tell me call the parent and ask him or her to come in and sign the application. So that's the exact comment that I entered. Now I want to validate this application. In order to validate the application, I can choose validate here in the middle. I also have the opportunity to delete the application. Okay. If you delete an application, those applications are not lost. So we do keep those applications under deleted applications. You can come back at any time and restore those applications in order to process them. But I'm going to go ahead and validate this application. So I'll choose validate. Once I choose validate, I am brought right back into the same area we left from manual applications. At this point, I can go ahead and check off signature because Mr. Gibbs has signed it. Now that I've selected signature, it is considered valid. They result in free income. And I can go ahead and save my application. Saving the application is processing the application. So think of saving, processing, and validating all to be the same. Okay, so once I save, that's considered processing it. So we'll go ahead and choose save. Once I choose save, notice that application is no longer within the SmartBin under pending applications because it's no longer pending. It's been processed. Now, even though it's been processed for Yasmin and Mina, remember Danny is still pending. So Danny still shows up under pending students. Once Danny is actually registered in my district and he comes in within the system, at that time, that's when Danny can be processed on this application. So the only students that have received the free eligibility at this time are Mina and Yasmin. Okay. All right, so what I'm going to do now, I am going to go ahead and add Danny in our system just so I can give you information on what it will look like when you go in to process the application on Danny. How are you going to know that he's come into the system? While I'm adding Danny into the system, please ask your questions within the questions panel. I'm going to turn the webinar over just briefly here to Megan to see if there are any questions that have come in. Just one moment.
All right, thank you, Shoshana. There are no questions as of yet, but if you do feel like we need to go over anything again, or if you have any questions about something, please just ask them in that questions pane. Thank you.
All right, awesome. Great, thank you so much, Megan. All right, so what I'm doing now is I am adding Danny into the system. I've entered his first name and his last name, and we're just going to quickly get him in here for us. And Danny is a male, and his date of birth, as the parent indicated, 7/11/2004. Okay. All right, so we have quickly added Danny. Now Danny is a student within my system. Okay, so within Premier Wedge, Danny is now registered. I make it a practice to come into the Smart Bin. So if you have pending students within your Smart Bin, always make it a practice to come in and look and see if you can match any of those students. Okay, so remember Danny was pending. At this time he's still pending. However, he's now been inserted into Premier Wedge. So notice we have a yellow triangle that now appears to the far right of Danny's name. If I hover over this yellow triangle, it tells me that there is a potential match found. Please match the student with the person using lookup. Okay, so the system has recognized that someone with Danny's name and his date of birth that's assigned to 6th grade has now come into my system. Okay, so now at this point I need to look up that student that we're determining to be a potential match. In order to do that, I just choose the lookup button. Okay, this is a box that contains 3 dots in it. I'll go ahead and choose lookup. Once I choose lookup, the student that matches my student, or that the potential student that matches the pending student, will come up within the list. So notice Danny shows up. I've determined that this is the student, so I'll go ahead and double click on his name. Once I double click his name, notice he comes with a green check mark that says matched. Okay. At this point, I can go ahead and hit process all matches, which will give me the ability to send a notification letter for Danny. Okay. So notice once I hit process all matches, Premier Wedge asks me, do you want to print a notification letter for the matching students? I'm going to choose yes. The reason I'm going to choose yes is because the family has already received a notification letter for Yasmin and Mina. But now we need a letter that also includes Danny's name. Okay. So I'll go ahead and choose yes. My notification letter will populate within a separate box. Notice this notification letter has all 3 students on it, and it notifies them that they are approved for free meals based on income. Okay. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and close out or cancel out of this letter. Notice Danny is now no longer within pending students because we've processed his match. There are 3 additional tabs or buttons or bullet points here across the top. I can also go under the Matched tab. And it's not coming up. Under the Match tab, once we come back into the system, under Match, it will show up those previous matches, ones that have already been matched. Okay. All right, so again, that is the Smart Bin. Let's take a look at deleted applications really quick. Under the deleted applications section, you will see all applications that have been deleted. You'll see the reason that they've been deleted, the date they were deleted, the user who deleted the app, and then any comments. Just how we saw validate under pending applications, we would see a button that's called restore. Under restore, we can directly restore that application as an active application and then process it. So if you ever delete an application, perhaps on mistake, you can always come back in and restore that app. All right. All right, so there we have discussed manual entry. How do we manually enter an application that we received that's on paper? We also looked at how to add a pending student. So just in case you get any parents that have new incoming students and they're filling out applications for those students, we showed you how to add those pending students and then go back and process them. Okay. We also looked at the Smart Bin and the options that are available under Smart Bin. Now we're going to move to the Notify tab. Under the Notify tab, in this area we can come in and look at applications that have been processed or previously notified. Okay. Under the processed area, once we have applications, for instance, online applications or scanned applications that you have already processed, okay, so they're processed but they're not yet notified, okay, so you went in and you hit save on every one of them, but now you need to notify those applications. So you can come in this area, choose processed, and then apply. In this training environment, I don't currently have any that have been processed. However, I'll explain each column to you. So if we have any processed applications, we would see the batch number. We would see the total applications in the batch. Okay. We would see the date the applications were received, who it's checked out by, the date it was checked out, and the batch type. Batch type would either be online or accepted applications. The check-in or checked in and check out, this is here, for example, if you have several people that are working within your district processing applications. So this is to prevent double work. So if one person already has a batch of applications checked out and they're working solely on that batch, no one else has the ability to go in and touch that batch until the original person or the person who has it checked out actually checks it back in. Okay. So once we see our batches and our applications within this area, at that point we can come in and either notify by email or print. If you choose to email notification letters, your students will need to have an email address on file, or the guardian would need to have an email address on file. If there is no email address on file for the guardian, you will only have the ability to print the notification letters. Okay. Once you print the notification letters, they will be sent to the printer that you have connected to your computer, and then you can mail them out. So that is the processed batch status. Under the notified batch status, this is where we can come back in and look at maybe batches that have already been previously notified. For example, if you were working on a batch of applications, that batch of applications had 25 apps in the batch. You went through, you processed all of them. After you processed all of those applications, you sent out notification letters, or at least you printed the notification letters. Once you printed the notification letters, they went to your printer, but you weren't able to go get them right away. But when you were able to go to retrieve them, those applications or the notification letters are nowhere to be found. So that means you need to come in and possibly reprint your notification letters. You can always visit this area under notified, because remember that 25 has been technically notified. Once you choose notified, you can bring that batch of applications back up, and then you can elect to print them again. Okay, so this is a way that you can go back and reprint previously notified applications. Okay. All right, so if you have any questions, any concerns, please ask those questions within the questions panel, and we will be fielding the questions and answering them. All right. Okay, so that completes the notify section. The last section that we will be discussing this afternoon is the master index. This is a great section. It's really fun. The reason I say it's fun is because this is where you can find all of your applications. You may find yourself visiting master index quite often. Okay, so under master index, so let me first explain the search criteria. Under master index, we can search for applications by academic year. So we can go back to previous academic years and look for applications. We can search for an application by site and the site code. So that means if I want to see all applications that were received from Basswood Elementary, or for students who go to Basswood Elementary, I can look up only those applications. I can also narrow that down by grade. So if I want to see all applications for students that are in the 4th grade, I can choose 4th grade. If you have a batch number for your applications, you can also search by batch number. Batch numbers are automatically generated by Premier Wedge. Okay, so these are automatic or systematically generated numbers. If you have an exact application number, we can also search by that application number. This is great for For example, if you have a parent that calls in, they call you and they say, I have my application number. Can you please take a look at it for me? Take a look at my income, so on and so forth, or give me additional information. So they've provided you with that application number. You can enter the application number here and then choose apply. Okay. You can also search by the application status, the eligibility, as well as the entry method. Okay. The application status is accepted, online, processed, and then notified. If you only want to look at free eligibility or applications that resulted in a free eligibility status, we can search for only those free eligibility applications. And we can do the same also for the entry method. Entry method means how was this application entered into Primero Edge. If we were to look for all manual applications again are the ones that are those paper applications. I can choose my eligibility and then choose manual. Once you choose apply, notice that our application 3507, that's the one that we just filled out, this one appears within the list because it was manual and it resulted as a free eligibility. We can also search by Guardian SSN. Okay, what was the Guardian SSN that was on file, as well as Guardian name. Then we can narrow that down by language as well. Aside for looking or searching by application, the great news is that we can also search by student. So if I choose this bullet here for student, notice I can enter a student ID number. If I don't have the student ID number, I can also choose this lookup box. Remember, it contains 3 dots. I can look my student up. Let's look at the Abula Hassan family. So I have put in Mina's name or a partial name for Mina. I found my student and go ahead and double click her name and then choose apply. So I'm looking for all applications for a student with ID number 36519. That's Mina. So I'm going to go ahead and choose apply. She comes up as being associated with application 3507. Okay. So if we were to also look for Yasmin, we would get the same information, that Yasmin is associated with application 3507. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and click on this application number. Now what we'll explain now is how to look at the general information of an application. And this is also including refusing benefits. So if you may have families that refuse benefits, we can refuse those and maybe give them reduced price benefits or denied benefits. To see that information, I'm going to go ahead and click on the application number. So I'm going to click on 3507. All right, so this brings me to the application information page. Under the information page, I have the basic information that was provided on the application. This is everywhere from the application number to the SSN that was provided along with the income. This area of the system will tell me the students on that application as well as the household members. We have the optional information tab. This is going to let us know what did the parent mark on the application as far as ethnicity, race, and other benefits. Notice I cannot make any adjustments here because this is directly tied to what was originally entered on the application. You cannot make any changes. If there was a guardian information put in, we would see the guardian information here. So if you can recall that scenario I gave about grandmother or grandfather maybe having guardianship, we would see their information here. We also can look at the history of the application. This is great because you can be able to tell how many times was this application processed, how many times was the application notified, so on and so forth. So you can see the history with a date and time stamp. So notice that the history of this application, it tells me on 7/14 at 11:23, this application was first partially validated. Okay. Then also on today's date, at 11:28, this application was finally processed. Okay. Then on 7/14 at 11:33, the application was notified. If I was to come back in and notify or send another notification letter on this family, we'll also see another listing of notified with today's date and then a new timestamp for whenever I sent that notification. So you would be able to see a running history of every time something happened on this application for this family. We can also enter comments. So there's a space to enter any additional comments for the application. Notice the previous comments that I entered during the pending application stage are also populated under previous comments. Okay. All right, so that is our History tab. One thing I would like to show you, notice there's two additional buttons here to the top left-hand corner. We have the Validate button and the Notification button. These buttons, the Validate will take you directly back into the application. So notice if I click on Validate, it takes me right back into the application itself. I can make changes from here and reprocess the application if needed. However, most districts, if there's like an income change or information that has changed on the application, maybe they want to add someone else to the application, you can elect to have the parent to fill out another application. Okay, so you don't necessarily have to come into this area and make any changes. If you want to keep record of changes being made, you can have the parent to submit a brand new application. Okay, so that's for those cases where maybe income was lost or income was gained. They can submit just another app and get a new app number. Okay. Our next, then you also have the Notification tab. You can directly just resend a notification letter by clicking on Notification, and then our notification letter will come up in a separate pop-up just as it did when we went to print the notification for Danny. Okay. All right, then our next tab that we're going to look into is the Refuse Benefits. So this may be very helpful to you. Under Refuse Benefits, we see the current eligibility of this application. It is free based on income. If a parent calls in and they let you know, although I know that my application resulted in free based on income, I want to pay some money. I want to be able to pay that 40 cents for reduced. So you can elect to refuse benefits. So the parent has told you they want to refuse the free benefits and they rather take reduced benefits. Within the area to the bottom where it has refused benefits, you have the option to choose between reduced and denied because you can only choose the lesser benefits. So if the family wants reduced benefits instead of free, we can choose reduced. We can go ahead and enter a start date. When do you want these reduced benefits to commence? When do you want them to start? I cannot have them start today, okay, because these students will remain on this free eligibility throughout today. So I will need to choose the next serving day, okay? So I can choose any date after today's date. Even if the parent wants the eligibility to start a week from now. So if they say let them finish out the balance of the week on the free eligibility, but beginning next week on the 24th, that's when I want them to go to the reduced eligibility. I can choose the 24th from the calendar and just make sure to enter comments. So enter detailed comments so you'll know in the future exactly what occurred on this student's account and why benefits are being refused. So I'll go ahead and enter a note here. Okay, so we can enter our notes. Once we have our notes entered, be sure to hit the button Refuse Benefits. We have to physically hit this in order for those changes to be saved. We will get a systematic message that says the eligibility for all students on this application will take effect on 7/24. Do you want to continue? Go ahead and choose OK as long as you want to continue. Now beginning 7/24, the student's eligibility benefits will change to reduced. At this time, we can also move over to the image and document section. Under the image and document section, this is where you would be able to scan or upload any additional documents. For example, if you received an email from the parents refusing the benefits, this is a great place for you to maybe upload that email or a copy of the email just to keep on record. Okay, so what you would do at this point is choose Upload File. Once you choose Upload File, choose that file from your computer and then save it. That file will result in a link here to the bottom. The link, you can click on it to open the document in PDF format. Okay. You're not limited to one file or one document to upload. You can upload multiple documents within this section as well. All right, so that's the application information page. So we discussed application information, our optional information, guardian information, where we can view the history of the application. This is where we can also refuse the benefits and then also upload any image and documents. Okay. So again, I was able to access this area through Master Index. Through Master Index, we can search for our application using the search criteria to the top, choose our application number, and then we're brought directly into the application information section. All right. Okay, and that actually brings us to the end of the applications training. We have approximately 8 minutes left in this training. We will leave that amount of time in order for you to ask your questions and for us to address those questions. So if you're typing away, we're not going to close the line out, Megan and I will stay on the line. I'm going to go ahead and ask Megan if we've had any questions to come in so far. If you don't feel like typing in a question, feel free, raise your hand, and then I can unmute your line and you can ask your question aloud. Hey, over to you, Megan.
All right, thank you, Shoshana. We don't have any questions as of yet. So I see we only have a few people on the line. But if you have any questions, feel free to raise your hand or type in that question in the questions box, whether it be related to applications or any of the previous trainings we already went through earlier this week. This is the last training of the week. And I do also want to note that these are being recorded, and you will have a copy of the recording within the next couple of weeks or so.
All right. Thank you again, Megan. Thank each and every one of you for joining us today on this training for applications. We're still going to be on the line with you. We're not going anywhere. You can feel free to drop off the line if you find that this training was sufficient and you don't have any questions to ask. But we're not going to close out the line. We still have approximately about 5 minutes left here on this training. As Megan stated, if you don't have any questions about applications, feel free to ask me any questions over student eligibility, something, if you're confused about anything and if it's something that I can clear up quickly for you. So thank you all for your attention today as well. All right, Miss Shelley Mack, I see you're the only one left on the line. If you want to talk, raise your hand and I can open the mic up to you. I'll give you the floor if you like. If not, feel free to drop off the call. And we look forward to speaking with you at a later time. All right, hello there, Miss Shelley Mack. I see you have your hand raised. Do you have a question for me? Miss Shelley? All right. Well, we're going to go ahead and close out the call today. Again, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your attention. If you find that you have any questions after the training, don't hesitate to send us an email, send us a note, let us know how we can help. It was a pleasure serving you today, and thank you for being a wonderful part of Primero Edge. Have a wonderful weekend, everyone.